Good afternoon and welcome to the Amputee Angler. We're indoors today and they're nice and warm. It's getting windy and blowy out there and getting a bit cold, as I mentioned in my last video. Halloween decorations are up. You might see some of them. I don't normally sit around with a skull mask in my house, but Halloween party this weekend for the kids. So, yep. Today we are making rigs and we're doing the conger eel rigs today. Last video I did was, other than the top tips one that I posted, was a conger eel trip with a few other bits and bobs thrown in. And I've had a few people ask me the rig I use for that, and I thought, well, I'm going to make some more up while the weather's bad anyway. So I thought I would just show you. 50 pound rod, nice beefy reel, 80 pound braid for starters. Any less than a 50, you're going to put yourself at risk if you get a big fish. A charter friend of mine who runs a successful boat out of Brighton took a conger trip not so long ago, told one of the guys that rod's not suitable. He went, yeah, it'll be fine. Got a nice fish on and it snapped, and lo and behold, he's got it on camera. I'll see if I can get that clip to put in here. If I can't, then apologies, but I'll try and get it on. But yeah, nice beefy rod and reel, 80 pound braid. The braid hasn't got to be anything special because you're going to be rubbing up against wrecks. Don't go spending loads of money on Daiwa J8 or whatever you're going to get on there. Just get a nice cheap and a decent cheap 80 pound braid, and that'll do you. And then from there, I keep it nice and simple. I like to try and fish easy where I can because, one, you're going to lose gear when you're conger fishing. So the more components in your rig, if you lose it, it soon adds up, all right? And there's just no need for it, to be honest with you. So this is how I do it. It starts off with a simple zip slider. And you're just going to thread that up your line. Now, believe it or not, there's a right and wrong way to put a zip slider on. And I wasn't aware of this until a good few years. Well, I say that, I've been aware of it for a while, but you need to have the opening, the bit that pushes down, facing away from the rig. And the reason being is, if you're bouncing along hard ground, it can actually bounce open. And I know some of you are probably going to be looking at this and thinking I'm talking out my arse, but I'm not. That's actually happened to me a couple of times. So now I'm very conscious that I always have it facing that way round. So if it hits the rocks, it's not going to bounce open. Then we're going to have a nice little rubber bead, just to soften the knot, because obviously you're going to tie this to your swivel in a second. But you have a little a bead of any description. It hasn't got to be rubber, but I just like rubber because they're soft. That then protects your knot. And then we're going to go to a very large and meaty snap swivel. And this is a big snap swivel, but I use big swivels for a reason, because when you're dealing with congers, sometimes you might have a pair of gloves on, and also if it's winter time, if you've got a nice fiddly one, you're going to struggle to open it. These nice big ones, they're easy. And this is a Cox and Rule snap swivel. There's the packet there. And it's these are meat. It's a size 8 and it's called a Coast Lock snap, all right? And you're not ever going to break those. With a traditional clip swivel, I was using those on my last rig, and I've had it a couple of times now, especially when I'm wrecking as well. They have a tendency to bend, and they're quite easy to pull out of the lock where it locks into on the traditional swivels. They can bend out, and if I know full well if I get a big meaty fish, it's just going to bend out. So this is what's going to go on now. So this will be attached to my main line, and then any rigs I want to put on there thereafter, I can just unclip and change rigs. Then the rig itself, it's going to be made up of 200 pound mono, and this is some Sakuma mono here. It's quite a nice mono. It's quite decent. It's stiff. It's 1.4 in diameter, and it's a good solid mono. Okay, you want to go quite strong. Don't go too weak. You're not like your match fishing where it's, you know, you want to finesse your tackle. Conger eel fishing, I've seen all sorts of people from the shore and the boat putting fancy pennel rigs on and bait elastic all around their baits and worried about presentation. For conger eel fishing, I'm telling you now, you don't got to do that. You really have not got to go arty-farty with it. Keep it easy and fish easy, and you will catch just as many, if not more, conger eels, I promise you, okay? So 200 pound line, a swivel. Now this is a Cedra 420 pound test swivel, okay? You can go bigger, but modern day swivels, they're nice and strong. This is stainless steel, it's not brass or copper. And while it may rust over time, these are super strong swivels, and combined in with a clip swivel, that's not going to go anywhere. If after time it starts rusting up, you know, if you've been for a season with the same rigs, you've got a way about breaking it, which is highly unlikely when you're eel fishing. But then this may start to seize up, and then all you do is just change it anyway. And by that point, you're probably going to be looking at changing your line, your hooks anyway, because it's all going to be roughed up. So that'll get you through a season. So that's, like I said, £420 swivel, and then that's going to be that. Then we're going to be going down to a couple of crimps, and then we're going to come down to the business end, and I'll put this together for you in a second so it all makes sense. But we're going to have a length of clear tubing. Now this is cut into probably what, I don't know, a 4 or 5 inch length, and you can go a little bit smaller if you want, but you'll see when I put it together why. That's just off eBay, literally pennies. I think it was a couple of quid for a length, 3 lengths about you know 60 centimeters long. Cut it down into sections. Now this, I love this. It's absolutely brilliant stuff, and it is such a good chafe protector. Conger eels have got big teeth, tope have got big teeth, you know, rays, all that sort of stuff. And when I'm turbot fishing out on the banks, I actually sometimes, if I know there's going to be skate or tope in the area, I will have this on my turbot traces as well, because it doesn't affect the fishing in any way, shape or form. But what it does do is it gets you in those extra fish, those bonus fish that otherwise would have bitten you off. So not only do you get those fish in, and I get to show you on the camera, but also you're not having to cut your traces and put new hooks on, because this simply protects it, okay? About, let's say, 4 or 5 inches long. Then we're going to have Muppets. Nice bright colours, okay? I don't know if there's anything in the colours. You know, it's a bit not like a place where you can definitively say certain colours catch more place than others. Sometimes they prefer green or red or whatever it is. Congers, I don't think it's about that. It's more about the attraction. Again, off eBay, couple of quid for a pack of 4. They're literally pennies. And this is, again, an attractor. You know, they're designed to look like mini squid, and all these little tails flap about in the tide, and it's just a bit more of a visual thing for the congers when they're in the depths. You know, if you're fishing deep water, you want as much attraction as possible. All you do is just snip a little top off to make a little hole, and then your line threads through it. And then that goes down to a 10-0 Cox and Rule meat hook. They do some really good stuff, Cox and Rule, as do Varavas, but these Cox and Rules meat hooks, they're brilliant. And these are, as a pack I opened earlier, these are absolutely mustard hooks. You know, they're brilliant hooks. They come out the pack razor sharp. The points on them are like needles. And they are just brilliant. You're not going to bend them. They are rock solid hooks. You're not going to get one of them snap. I'm telling you now, you're not going to get one of them snap. They are brilliant for what they are. And I wouldn't go anywhere else. I might downsize to an 8.0. I did that at the weekend on the wreck I was on. I knew there's bass on the wreck where I was fishing, so I scaled down the hook ever so slightly, and I also got away with the Muppet and put a bit of cuttle on, and we had a nice 6-pound bass on it. So you can fish this rig, you can scale it down hook size, and an 8.0 will catch congers as well, but when you're in those deep wrecks with the monsters, you want a nice big meaty one. Like any fish that you see, you'll be surprised at how big a hook you can get in there. You can go up to a 12.0 and they still wouldn't touch the sides in places. And then that's held together by some crimps. I'm using Cedra double crimps. I double crimp my rigs, and I'll come on to what I mean by double crimping in a minute. The line is 1.4. I'm using a 1.8 size crimp to get it in the hole, so it's not bar tight before I crimp it. And then this goes round both on the swivel and the hook. So let's put it together, shall we? So start off, keep your line on the spool. You haven't got to take it off the spool. It's easy if you keep it on there for now. And then the first thing we're going to do is we are going to thread on 2 crimps. Doesn't matter what side of the crimp it goes for now, because you can twist it round in a minute. So 2 crimps going on. Then we are going to put on our length of tubing. Or wrong, sorry, we're going to put the Muppet on first. Let's go for an orange one now. Then we're going to put on our length of tubing. Like so. It's easy if you just thread it on now, and if you work it off on the spool, it all stays in there. It's not going to fall off one end of your line. That's why I keep it attached to the line there. Then we're going to put another 2 crimps on. And then finally we are going to put on our meat hook, and you're just going to put it in through the eye and then just fold it back on itself, and then you leave a tag, okay? So what we're now going to do is, there's the hook, is when this is crimped on, I like to leave a little bit of a loop on the back just so it's a little bit flappy. If you make it too tight, that stays really rigid and it sort of sits like that and it doesn't move. I like a little bit of movement in there because, again, every little advantage that I can get when I'm fishing, I will take. So that little bit of extra movement and that flapping around there is just something I like to do. So what we're going to do now is we're now going to push your tag end through the other side of the crimps. You can see the concentration on my face as I do this now. Just pull it down, like so. Like I said, we're going to leave a little loop there in the bottom. And then you do the same with the second one. And you're going to push it down like so. There we go. And I'm going to leave the tiniest of gaps between my two crimps. And again, the reason I do that, and it's just the tiniest of advantage, is when that conger has that deep hooked, that little bit of metal there, its teeth aren't going to cut through the mono. Now, I know that seems very minor, but like I said, any advantage you can get, take it. Going to take our crimping pliers, just a cheap set of crimping pliers. You can use electrical pliers. I bought these online. They're really simple. And we're going to double crimp it. What I mean by double crimping is not only am I using two crimps, double, but I'm also going to pinch one side in 3 places. So the right hand side, the middle and the left hand side. Then I'm going to flip it over and I'm going to crimp the other side in exactly the same way. And then I'm going to do the same with the second crimp. Flip it over and I'm going to crimp it. There we go. That is now your hook. That there, that ain't going nowhere. Promise you. Now, a lot of people will now at this point, they will trim this tag off. And if we wasn't using the tubing, I would agree with you there. Now this is a little bit longer than what I normally leave it, but the reason we leave it on is, first off, we're going to slide this rubber tubing down now, and you're going to take that tag end and you're going to tuck it up inside that tubing and you're going to thread it in. Now, that's now the rig starting to come together now. And then what you're going to do is take that tubing, and it gets a little bit fiddly here, you have to sort of manoeuvre it a little bit, but you're going to just slip it over that top crimp and push it on as far as it will go, and it probably won't go over the second one, but that's fine, we don't need it to. But push it down as far as it will go. It's just starting to go over that second one now. And then it sort of won't go any further because you're stretching the max of the tube. It's only a small tube I've got. You can go a bit bigger if you want, but that's that. Now, that tag end is safely concealed away inside your tubing. Now, placing your fingers around where the mono is, and take a lighter and just ever so slightly just heat up that tubing. And what that will do is that will shrink it tight to those metal crimps. And again, just take it, you're only literally blasting it ever so gently. It's not going to affect the mono in any way, shape or form because it's protected by that rubber tubing and there's not enough constant heat on there to affect that line. All you're going to do is literally just shrink it ever so slightly over to the line. Now, what we've now got, let's make sure it's cooled down before you touch it, is we've got a free-flowing hook, which is on that little loop there, and that shrink tubing is now on there. That then now gives us that extra protection, and by leaving that tag end in there, not only if we do have a slight slippage, and you're not gonna, that is going nowhere, I promise you, that extra bit of line in there is again an extra bit of abrasion resistance. You've got 200-pound mono there, it's got to bite through 2 lots of that before that line's parting. That's why I put that tube on there, okay? Now, if you start pulling up some beastie congers, and they get, you know, the record conger, or the previous record conger was caught out in New Haven, my own port. I think it was £110. When you start hitting those, you're going to be needing every bit of advantage you can get. So that's that now. There it is. Then you're going to slip your muppet down over the hook. And I've cut the hole a little bit big on that one. It's a little bit floppy, but there we go. That muppet there then is your attractor. You're going to have your mackerel flapper, your cuttle, whatever you're going to have on there. That muppet is also another layer of protection. All right, on that hook hold. Mainly for the attraction of muppets, but it's also another layer of protection. And there you're going to have your bait, your muppet, your crimps, and your tubing all on there. You are going to land any size conger on that. As long as you play it right and you've got the right gear for the job, you know, your rod and reel sort of thing, you are going to land any conger reel you like on that rig. Then you're going to come up a little bit, however long you want your trace. Some people like a long trace, some people are short, different tide situations, etc, etc. Each to their own. I like a little bit to get hold of. I don't like them too short, because otherwise I find the weight's up at the rod and you're trying to grab a line and the eel's half out of the water. So I like them sort of maybe 2 to 3 foot, not too far off when I'm turbiting, to be honest with you. And all you're going to do is bear in mind we've got our 2 crimps that we threaded on earlier. Take the line, trim it. You're then going to take your swivel and you're going to do exactly the same as you did with the hook, and you're then going to thread it back through. Trouble with this, it can be a bit fiddly. Put them both on, pinch it down, push them up tight, and then once again you're going to double crimp it, twist it over to the other side, and then you're going to repeat on the other crimp. And again, that's going nowhere. Now this time, because we haven't got the rubber tubing on, we are going to trim that off. Otherwise, what will happen is that can tangle up on there, and it seems silly that would do that, but anyone who's been fishing long enough will know that is the case. And I'm not going to cut it right to the crimp. I'm going to cut it just ever short of it, like that. And then folding the trace line away from your swivel, you're just going to take a lighter and you're going to slowly melt the end just to mushroom it out a little bit. And by mushrooming, what I mean is you sort of make the end flat, give it a little blow so it cools down, and there you have the finished end there. And what that does is, just by flattening the end of the rig there, if again you get some slippage, and you shouldn't have slippage on those 2 crimps if you've done that correctly, having that flat end there just makes a bit of resistance. It's basically too big for the hole. It's a square peg in a round hole, essentially, is what that does. And if it does slip, it will then hook on itself going through the crimp, and it will then stop you and hopefully allow you to get the fish in. And then that there is your finished rig. There you go. So you've got your crimp swivel on the end, and you've got your muppet and your 10-0 meat hook, your double crimp and your tubing. Now, some people will say, oh, that doesn't look too pretty there with that tubing. I don't care. This is my way of doing it. I like this way of doing it. It catches fish, and it gives me that extra layer of protection, all right? You know, it's like having a seatbelt and an airbag, you know, in a car. You know, you double up on things, all right? And conger eel fishing is not there to be pretty. You're there to get them in. And this there is giving you the best chance of doing that, okay? Any questions on the rig, guys, let me know. Drop a like and a follow and a subscribe. It all helps me. And if you've got any comments or questions on it, just let me know. I will start putting links in where I buy my gear, okay? I won't do it yet, but I will start doing that. As always, my inbox is always open if you have any questions. And if you do anything differently or have questions on why I'm doing something, hopefully I've explained it. But that should be pretty self-explanatory. But yeah, just drop me a message. I'm a nice, friendly guy. I'll answer all the questions where I can. Thanks for watching. Have a great day.